Good morning, Ken. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. How about yourself, brother?
I am living the dream. You ever been to Tennessee, Ken?
No, I haven't.
All right, man. You need to come down, take a visit.
Hopefully sometime soon.
Mm-hmm. Guys and gals out there in Warrior Nation, my name is Rich Brown, co-host, co-founder of the American Warrior Society and the American Warrior Show, America's leading self-defense podcast. I have the great honor and distinct privilege of being joined by Mr. Ken Shadow Goodman. Uh,
Morning.
Ken is going to explain to us about the training methodology that he employs called 52 blocks. Guys, you are going to love today's show. If you want to find out more about the American Warrior Society, however, and become a member of our community, self-preservation community, get access to the training vault where we got everything from white belt to blue belt, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, got medicine, tactical medicine with Dr. Dan Nikki. We've got edge weapons, less lethal, rifle, handgun, shotgun, low light considerations, gun grappling, etc. Please click the links in today's show notes. Take a free 14-day trial. Or Mr. Mike Seeklander and I got Jay Fujimoto jumping on from Hawaii. Good morning, Jay.
Hey, Jay, what's going on?
Walt Davis is on. John Shriver is on Yukon, Oklahoma. Dr. T.C. Fuller is on from South Carolina. He is coin number 1620. He is also the author of No Safe Alternative. Look at that. Improving how we teach cops to kill. Love that subtitle. If you want to also pick up a good read, you can pick up my memoir on violence and varietals, Tales of Action. All those things are going to be links in today's show notes, as well as information on where you can train with Ken. My brother Jeff is on, as well as Kim is on. She says, good morning from PA. Good morning, Kim. Please like and hit that share button. We are just getting started. I will go ahead and read Ken's bio. Ken Shadow Goodman, the founder and Chief Combatives Coach of 52 VTK, is a testament to the power of resilience and constant self-improvement. His journey began within the challenging confines of the New York State prison system, where he was a resident for a quarter of a century. In this violent subculture, Ken honed his combat skills intensively, refining them for survival. His self-protection system, a product of years of meticulous development, was born and tested within these walls, proving its effectiveness time and again. Ken's introduction to the martial arts world occurred at age 5 and set the groundwork for his profound journey. He kickstarted his training with fencing and the prison dirty boxing style known as 52 blocks or Jailhouse Rock. This foundation allowed Ken to complement his fighting style with conventional boxing. Ving Tsun, am I pronouncing that correctly?
That's one way to put it, but that's Wing Chun, basically. That's just
Wing Chun, okay.
Pronounce it.
Kali, Krav Maga in the later years. Today, Ken Shadow Goodman, the man who turned adversity and resilience, shares his expertise with the world, reinforcing the importance of self-protection and teaching the skills needed to make it in reality. Good morning once again, Ken.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey, thanks for coming on the show, man. And just, is there anything that your bio overlooks?
Well, outside of what it's already stated, the fact that I'm father of 4, and some of my pastimes I enjoy, like bow hunting. That's a big thing for me. I enjoy shooting bows. I think it's relaxing. It's like meditative. That's really it. Just my family, man. Family first. Families. Everything is about protecting the family. That's one of the reasons I do what I do. Another reason is to help people feel safer. Right, having been the predator, I can help people better understand the mind of the predator and take those tactics and use it to their advantage. So that's it in a nutshell.
I love it, man. And I want to dig into some of that predator stuff. We've talked about that a lot here on the show, predation. But tell me about, man, quarter of a century in prison. Tell us about surviving in prison, Ken.
So in that era, right, I came in on the tail end of what they call the fight or. So let me ask you, is profanity an issue here? Because sometimes I will need to use profanity.
Let it fly. If used appropriately, I have zero problem with it.
All right, cool. So I came into the prison system on the tail end of what was called the fight or fuck era, right? So if you couldn't fight, then you was probably going to end up having to do the other thing, right? So, prison is an environment that is different from most environments in that everybody in prison is a predator. Even parasitic individuals are looking for somebody to latch onto in order to survive. So everybody's a predator. You already know this going in, right? It's just about now establishing your place in the pecking order. So that forces you to become something other than, for lack of a better term, it forces you to become something other than human, right?
Mhm.
You have to tap into your bestial self in order to thrive in prison. Survival isn't enough in most cases because you could be surviving under somebody's boot heel. You know, somebody could have you bent over in the cell or something, but you're surviving, right? So if you want to actually thrive and maintain some semblance of who you were before coming in, you have to become something else for the time that you're there.
I love how you say, bringing out the primal part of you. As many of you know on the show, I worked in prison for a year before I became a street cop. And I'm gonna tell you, man, the first day I walked into the pod, uh, this big black guy stands up, got cornrows, and he yells over at the pod officer. I've just walked into the pod, and he says, "Yo, Benji," and he was talking to the pod officer. He's like, "This your boy?" And he pointed at me, and he's like, "Yeah, that's your new pod officer, Officer Brown." He's like, "Yo, white boy, when Benji leaves you alone in here," and he just started making a thrust and this. And but I mean, and that's the thing, how do you react to that? Because if you let this guy punk you, he owns you, right? So it's a very I liked that environment. I know that sounds crazy. I wouldn't want to be a resident, Ken, but it's a very clear place. It's ones and zeros. It's binary. You either fight or, as you said, you do the other thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's from a weird point of view. That's kind of probably one of the most honest places that I've ever been because again, you already know what everybody has a hidden agenda. But I'm not gonna say most people. 99.9% of the people you encounter have a hidden agenda. You already know this, right? So then it's a matter of finding where you fit in it. And like so, to what you had said about allowing things to slide, right? Funny story. So I went in. I was young and you hear stories before you get upstate. Like I was, start on Rikers Island, then you got to go upstate. So you hear all these stories about, don't if somebody does this, like if somebody leaves cookies or something on your bed, that's a bad thing, right? If somebody gave you extra sugar. So now I get to Kaksaki, and they have in the morning the cereal bowls are like above eye level, so you can't see in the bowl. So I take the bowl down, I look in the bowl, there's sugar in the bowl. So I'm taking the sugar out the bowl, slamming it on the counter, like, yo, it's nothing sweet about me. Don't put no sugar in my bowl, right? So the dude is like, all right. Second day, same thing. Third day, I'm like, yo, when I catch you in the yard, I'm gonna do this, boom, boom, boom. The dude is like, I don't understand what's going on. So my friend is like, yo, what happened? I said, yo, this dude put sugar in my bowl. He's like, man, they put sugar in everybody's bowl. So I was eating my cereal without sugar every morning, thinking that the guy was trying to come on to me or something.
I tell you though, that I would rather do what you did than make the other mistake. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chuck is joining us from Texas. Good morning, Chuck. My lovely bride, Miss Lisa, is on.
Good morning.
Ted is on from Mississippi. Gerald is on from Oregon. Please like and hit that share button. Thank you to the 15 folks watching us live. Ken, so for 25-ish years, whatever it was you spent in prison, as far as weapons in prison goes, I would imagine that most of the time the maximum lethality you're carrying is some sort of edge weapon, a shank, a shiv, whatever they call them in there, right?
Right.
What's the role of the edge weapon in prison?
So prison is like a blade-based culture, really, when you break it down, right? Or a blade-based subculture. There's a lot of stabbing, a lot of cutting, right? You get guys using razor blades, rug cutters, scalpels, right? You can even make an axe or like a tomahawk if you take the big can of tuna fish top and fold it a certain way and tie it to either the end of a broomstick or a toilet brush, right? So weapons are a big part of that, as far as like ambush. And then, so I tell people there are two types of violence in prison, right? Well, really three types of violence, but we're going to talk about two. The two types of violence are either ambush, right, or the duel, right? The ambush is the most common. Something happens, you get ambushed, and usually that involves either a stabbing weapon or a slashing weapon. The duel happens where you get a couple of individuals may belong to two different organizations, and it doesn't benefit everybody. These two have an issue. It doesn't benefit everybody to go to the box because these two have an issue. So what happened is those two individuals agree to go off in the corner somewhere with knives and like 2 men into 1 man leave, like the Thunderdome back in the days, Mad Max and the Thunderdome. So that's generally how that goes. But weapons play a big part in everything.
Can you talk another thing? I think that most Americans would be shocked by. I don't know if this is this way in the New York penal system, but everything I've seen is you're clicking up based on race. You might be cool with everybody outside, but once you're inside, it's all about getting with your people. Was that true in New York as well?
Nah, not for most of the time that I was in there. It wasn't, right. You have pockets of individuals who do stuff like that, but by and large, because New York is a cosmopolitan place, right? New York City, and most of the guys in the New York State prison system are coming from New York City. So dudes are interacting with each other based more on affiliation, right? If a guy belongs to a certain group in the street, then he'll deal with that group when he gets into prison. Like, I'm from Brooklyn, so for the most part, Brooklyn is a borough, but in the system, it's treated almost like a gang because the guys from Brooklyn tend to stick together, right? So it doesn't matter if you're a white guy from Brooklyn, a Spanish dude from Brooklyn, a black dude from Brooklyn. If you're from Brooklyn and there's an issue, usually everybody from Brooklyn is coming out to the yard to support you.
Wow. Okay, that's really cool. Explain, because I think when people hear, you mentioned predation at the beginning, Ken, and I think a lot of people, when they hear predatory mindset or predation and resource predators, process predators, and all the kind of sociological implications of those kind of things, they think that is wrapped around violence, and violence is only about predation. But to me, I'm thinking that violence is a tool, right? How do you look at violence, Ken?
So first, I believe that violence is a universal language, right? Because if I speak French and you speak English, and you may have done something to offend me, and I try to tell you that, you may not understand because of the difference in language. But if I hit you over your head, you understand you did something wrong, even though you may not understand what it is you did wrong, right? So violence is universal language. However, if you speak the language of violence all the time, you never really get anything accomplished because nobody wants to get near you. So the threat of violence is often a form of commerce, right? If I can make you believe that I'm willing to do something to you and I'm capable of doing that thing, I'm more likely to be able to get you to do what it is I want you to do, right? So a lot of the times, like, some of the most heinous acts of predation that I see in the prison system don't involve violence at all, right? It's just the threat of violence. You make someone believe that if they don't comply with this, then the worst can happen, right? And a lot of the time, you let the person's imagination fill in the blanks for them. And imagination is a weapon that you can use against someone, right? Because human beings, being the way we are, we always tend to think the worst. So,
I love that, man. I absolutely agree with every word you just said. But it's the capability and capacity for violence. If I'm 4'11" and weigh 97 pounds and I'm threatening somebody of your size, Ken, it's gonna be like, hey man, you have, unless I'm armed, right? If we're just in the yard and I'm not armed, there's no potentiality for me to carry that out. So it's the threat of violence coupled with the capability to enact what I just told you, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's a legit threat. And like you said, it makes people start thinking, what's the calculus on this? Am I really ready to go toe to toe with this guy?
But see, now there's another component there, right? Because if you take the 4'11" guy, right? It's not always about you being able. Check it. There's a strategy that booty bandits would use, right? Where what they would do is they
explain booty bandit, Ken. I know what you mean. I don't think the listener might know what you mean.
They are basically sexual predators who, take advantage of weaker individuals for sexual pleasure, right? Try to say that as politically correct as possible. But
well done, sir. Well done.
But one of the strategies that they would use is, because a lot of them would have some time and they know some people or whatever the case. So they might find two dudes that they know who look intimidating, right? So there's a new dude that just got there. He's young. He doesn't know any better. They'll befriend him first. They'll feed him, all of that. Then they'll have the two guys run up on the guy and scare him, right? Like if they're going to do something to him. And then he comes over and plays the savior. Like, yo, leave him alone. This my little man, whatever, boom, 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 boom. Right? Now the kid is thinking these guys want to do something to him, and this guy just saved him. So now he feels like the guy's been feeding him, the guy's been looking out for him, the guy just saved him from getting hurt, right? Not because the booty bandit is the threat, even though he is the threat, but he made it appear that these dudes were a great threat. They're the ones who are going to commit the act of violence, right? And he saved this kid from that. So now the kid feels that he owes. Then a couple of days go by, then the booty bandit starts to act distant toward the kid. The kid starts to get worried because he remembers these guys want to hurt him, right? So he's trying to figure out what did he do wrong to the booty bandit. And then the booty bandit said, I've been in jail a long time. I haven't been with a woman, yo. If we could do this, nobody would know, or whatever the case. And boom. Booty bandit never hit the guy, never threatened him himself, nothing, right? The threat came from, or at least in the kid's mind, the booty bandit never threatened him, right? Even though he was the one who sent the other dudes out.
It's like the perception of the threat. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, this is great. Bruce is on up there in Michigan. He is coin number 481. Pat Cahill from Northern Wisconsin, coin number 2446. Chris is on from Ottawa. Good morning, folks. Chuck Renfro is on as well. Good morning, guys. Ken, tell me about 52 blocks. We've been talking about the environment in which it was spawned, and I think you mentioned earlier it was probably called some form of dirty boxing, then it was Jailhouse Rock, then it was 52 blocks. When I look at 52 blocks, the videos that I've seen, and I've watched a lot of your content on Instagram and elsewhere, it seems to have a lot of elements of Kali and Wing Tsun. Is that the foundation of the system, or what is the foundation?
So from the way the history was explained to me, right, there had always been, excuse me, different styles of fighting inside the prison system, right? A lot of them had names of prisons like the Comstock Shuffle, the Woodburn Shuffle, the Auburn Shuffle, so on and such. And each of these styles had a distinct characteristic, right? So you had different individuals who were masters at these styles or expert at those styles. And at one point, a bunch of them found themselves in HDM down on Rikers Island, and all in the same block. And they would train together. So they started taking apart which pieces worked best, what fit together well, right? And kind of formulating that into a system. Because the thing was that at that time in the prison system, the boxer was the big dog on the yard. That was the biggest threat, right? You have a lot of professional boxers and semi-pro boxers in the prison system. So how do you beat the boxer, right? You have to beat him by attacking him in ways that he's unaccustomed to defending, and defending in the ways that he was unaccustomed to attacking. So now one of the individuals who are credited with having
can I pause you just because you just said something important for those that may not do martial arts or combatives. You have to fight him in a way he's not accustomed to. If I try to box with a boxer, I'm gonna get my face kicked in. Yeah. I'm more of a grappler. I know just enough striking to get myself hurt. So if the guy wants to box me, I'm going to grapple. If he wants to grapple, I'm going to strike. And I think your point is so damn spot on. And I don't hear a lot of people say that, Ken. So I love what you just said, man. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's such an important point you just made.
Right. But so one of the guys credited with having a hand in the formulating of the system was a guy named Karate Rob, also known as Karate Bob, who had been a student of Moses Powell, who had been a student of Professor Visitation. Professor Visitation was a Filipino martial artist, right? So I believe that that's where the Filipino influence comes from, because even the footwork, right? We call it W footwork, but the footwork is very similar to the footwork in Kali, right? Mm-hmm. Now, again, that was the one, if there's a connection, that's the connection, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't see that because, like, one of my instructors in 52 blocks was a man named Minister Ali. And he and I had a discussion one time early on. And I had saw him do something with his feet, and I was like, "That's Predatory shit." He had no idea what I was talking about, but he basically was using the same V footwork, right? But he didn't know it as that. He just knew it as the W. He didn't know what Predatory was. And a lot of 52 practitioners, him in particular, minister, they weren't big fans of martial arts. They didn't think martial arts worked, right? Or conventional martial arts. But that's because in the system you have a lot of, in any jail you go to, there are going to be 75 grandmasters of some type of conventional martial arts system, and all 75 of them can't fight, right? So,
yeah.
So that black martial arts takes a black guy in the prison system because the guy's pretending to be something that they're not. So the system was formulated for that purpose, and then also to fight in tight spaces, right? Like, I don't think that I'm a Wing Tsun practitioner too. Wing Tsun is great for fighting in tight spaces, enclosed spaces, right? But the lineage that I come under, like my lineage comes through Muay Thai, right? So there are certain things that you don't do in that it's center line Wing Chun, right? So everything is here. There's no hook and punches except for the elbows and so on and such, which kind of limits you, right? So 52 kind of takes that to the next level as far as you can shoot the elbow, you can do the uppercut, the hook, use your elbows, use headbutts, use a shoulder bump, and stuff like that.
Is
So
it adding Muay Thai in? Is it or not, Ken?
you say that
when you're throwing elbows and stuff, it looks like you're throwing like a Muay Thai type of elbow strike.
See, so that's the thing. It's not a deliberate. The elbow is deliberate, but it's not deliberately taken from Muay Thai, right? There's a block, or there are a couple blocks. Like this block right here is called the skull and bones, right? When you do this block, so I tell everybody, right, that at the end of every block is a strike. At the end of every strike is a block, right? That's in the beginning. But once you get past that stage, your strikes and blocks become synonymous with each other. They're interchangeable. So you can use your block as a strike and use your strike as a block, right? So when I do the skull and bones, if I'm depending on the proximity to the opponent, right, it can be an elbow strike, right? It may not be a block right now. I may do like a pop die, hit, boom, and then come in behind that with a skull and bone. So now I've hit here, and then use my block to deliver an elbow strike as opposed to blocking anything, right? So that's where you see a lot of crossover, and that's where you see a lot of similarity. And that's one of the reasons I feel 52 is such a good system, because you can adopt it to fit with a bunch of other systems, right? You can adopt it to Wing Chun, you can adopt it to boxing, you can adopt it to Muay Thai, Krav Maga, even to a degree, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? Because I'm not a grappler, but I enjoy sparring with people. And when I get the opportunity, I roll around with BJJ guys, and I might use a block as a frame in order to trap someone's hands in to keep them from doing something, right? Frame out some kind of way, boom. It's the same blocks. I'm just trying to figure how to do them on my back. And see, that's one of the beautiful things for me. It puts me in a position where I'm uncomfortable, and I have to find a way to make myself comfortable. If you only practice when you're comfortable, you'll never be really good, right?
Right. Let's go back to prison for a minute. Now, is most of the fights in prison, are they standing or grounded or a combination of both? Do the fighters in prison or whatever you want to call them, are they try to keep it on their feet, or what's the deal with that, Ken?
Yeah, now nobody really wants to go to the ground, right? Because the reality of the situation is that the assumption is always that you're not just fighting one person. And if I'm on my back, right, or even if I'm got the other guy on his back and I'm on top of him, I don't know who's coming at my back, right? So mobility is life. As long as I can move around, I can constantly be checking my six, right? The minute I'm in a position where I'm stationary and I can't have that mobility, I can't check my back like that, I'm vulnerable, right? And as we mentioned earlier, prison is a blade-based subculture. I don't want to give my back to someone. I'm on top of a guy pounding him, and some dude comes up and puts a knife in the back of my neck, or it goes, through my carotid artery or in my lung or anything like that. So I need to be moving. So most fights are usually do try to keep the fight standing up, and if it does go to the ground, both parties are trying to get back up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, because the idea of a fair fight is probably not there.
Yeah, no.
No. Alan Kelly is on from Occupied Virginia. It says running late this morning. Well, Alan, we're just happy that you're here. Stephen is on from New York. Good morning, Stephen. Thinking of the 25 folks watching us live and everybody that's going to be listening to us in the replay and the podcast to come. I want to ask is as far as like the benefits of training 52 blocks, I think you did a really good job explaining that. What are some of the limitations of 52 blocks?
So the biggest limitation for me is that it wasn't ever intended to be used on the ground, right? So since it wasn't intended to be used on the ground, um, trying now to find how to implement it on the ground, there was nobody to come before me to point that out for me, to highlight it for me, to show me what to do on the ground, how do you use it. So and that's obviously a limitation, because if somebody does take you to the ground, like, in this day and age, a lot of people are doing BJJ. Guy takes you to the ground, you got to know how to get him off you, or at least keep him from being able to hurt you, right? That's its biggest limitation, right? But I'm trying to rectify that.
When I see some of the 52 blocks I've watched online, it's not even, it's blocking like you were just demonstrating with the skull and bones technique, I think you call it, Ken, but it also seems to be a lot of, and I don't know what the right word for this. I've never studied Wing Chun or Kali 52 block, but a lot of sticky hands, or almost like I wouldn't say catch wrestling, but that's not necessarily the truth. But it seems like the style would lend itself to grappling really well with some of that sticky hand stuff I see.
So what it is that there are certain blocks, right, that, like, for example, the fan and the windmill, that you could use in order to and get a tie, right, on another guy, or whatever the case. Because you parry, like, say he throws a punch and you parry the punch, you can come over that punch and grab the back of his head and go into your grappling, right? Mm-hmm. But like I said earlier, this is what makes the system so good, because you can adapt it to everything, right? Or just about everything, right? So, it has that potential for grappling, right? But I've never known, and none of the people who ever trained me in 52 blocks were grapplers, right? All of these guys were like former boxers. So they always looked at it from the stand-up boxer perspective. Stay on your feet, don't go to the ground, position.
Now, is there any kicks in 52 blocks, Ken?
There are. All right, so to address that, so we had to make a distinction, right? There's 52 blocks. Let's call it classical 52 blocks, right? And then there's 52 VTK, which we'll call contemporary 52 blocks, right? Now, classical 52 blocks is what I was taught, from the brothers in the prison system, and that really didn't have any kicks in it, right? As I mentioned earlier, Minister Alik and a lot of other old timers, they weren't big fans of the martial arts style of stuff, because, with them, when you're fighting in a cell, throwing a kick could be detrimental, right? Because the space is so tight. If you just miscalculate your distance a little bit, you could end up on your back, right? But because of my training in like Wing Chun and Kali, I understand that there are certain kicks that you can use that, even if you were in a cell, are beneficial, right? So I've incorporated a couple of kicks into the system now. That's the 52 VTK, right? Could we speak about that for a second?
100%, Ken, absolutely.
So 52 VTK, right? The VTK initially stood for the name of the system. Wow, I'm all the way off. But the name of the system, 52, this is my progression in combat training, right? Starting with 52 blocks, then Wing Chun. The VT is for Ving Tsun, and the K was for Kali, right? Boom. And that was how I learned, and I wanted that to be reflected in the system. I used my training in Kali and Wing Chun in order to enhance and upgrade 52 blocks, right? An old timer that I had trained with back in the days, his name was Powerful. He had told me one time, he said that if we were still doing the same 52 blocks that he had been doing when he was young, then we were allowing the system to become stagnant. And when he said that, I took it to heart, right? So since I had trained in things other than 52 blocks, I'm like, wait, how can I? And there are a lot of similarities between 52 and Kali, between 52 and Wing Chun, right? I'm like, okay, cool. What can I take from these to make this system better, right? So 52 VTK is different from standardized 52 in that respect, right? It has all of the blocks that I felt was useful and applicable to this day and age are still there. The ones that I didn't think were applicable, I took out. And then there are other elements and principles that I took from my Wing Tsun training and Kali training, and even because I also do like Krav and some World War II combatives, and I took stuff from those and incorporated it as well to make an all-around, more practical system.
Well, and let's talk about that. So a more practical system. What it sounds like though is you took the 52 blocks, Jailhouse Rock, and all that stuff that worked in the confines of the corrections. You move it out to maybe the street outside of that environment, and then maybe that was what was driving you to incorporate some of the other things you ultimately did to create your own system, 52 VTK. Is that what I'm understanding?
To a degree, but the reality is that it's the concept of it started forming while I was still in the prison system.
Oh, okay.
Like a lot of night, so I went to prison with 8 years. I ended up spending a quarter century there, right? And that wasn't for good behavior, right? So I was into a lot of, I got into a lot of knife fights and stuff like that. And 52, as it was, didn't really have a solid knife component, but my Kali training gave me that. And even like my Wing Tsun training gave me that. So I would see, okay, cool, I can do this with the knife and, whatever. And I started incorporating that stuff there, right? Certain the traps,
Yep.
How to trap a person, how to deflect the blade, how to keep it outside the box, because this is the kill box, right? Everything vital is in this box right here. So I need to keep the weapon away from that, right? So there are elements of 52 that deal with that because it's a prison art, and knives and other edge weapons are a reality of the prison system. So the guys that put it together took that into consideration. But my thing was, okay, how do we take this prison art and make it into a killing art, right? So I need to take these things from here, boom. When I got to the street, this obviously not the prison system and working with a different set of rules out here. Okay, how do we make it less of a killing art, but still make it effective enough that people can get home? So one of the things that makes 52 different, right, is that it was as far as I'm aware anyway, it was the only art created by predators to combat predators, right? See, when predators train, right, predators don't train to fight civilians because they don't train to fight their targets, their victims. Because the people they pick for victims are people they think are weak, right? No predator wants to work hard for its food, right? So right. They look for the person they think they can get like this. However, predators understand that there may come a time they have to deal with other predators. So they're training to deal with people like themselves, right? So this is where that whole thing about teaching people how to take a predatory art and use it for their benefit. Because if you can fight like the predator, right, you understand the mindset of the predator. If you understand the mindset, a lot of times you won't have to engage with him, right? You can defuse the situation before it starts, right? However, if it does go there, right, one of my favorite quotes is from Jean-Jacques Dessalines, right, who said, you must become like your natural enemy, cruel and merciless, right? I'm a firm believer that mercy and compassion are for before and after the engagement, right? I'm being merciful and compassionate by trying to defuse the situation and de-escalate before it gets to violence, right? I'm going to be compassionate and merciful after the situation by calling the ambulance, down on 911, let them know there's been an incident, somebody's hurt, they need medical attention, boom. But in that space in between, there's no room for compassion or mercy, right? This person came to you, they didn't have intent on being compassionate, they had no intent of being merciful. You represented a meal to that person, right? And them being able to eat is predicated upon whether or not they can be successful in whatever it was they were trying to do to you.
Yep.
You have to be just as ruthless with them as they intended to be towards you, right? So otherwise, I tell people, like, the only thing you owe the person who attacks you on the street is a long hospital stay or a short funeral, right? Boom, that's it. Anything outside of that is ridiculous, right? You can't be compassionate with someone who had bad intentions towards you. right? And this is where 52 is different because it was made to deal with people who were predators, right? Who, it was made by people who were ruthless to deal with people who were also ruthless, right? So just in learning the system, you start to understand the mindset of the predator and you start to understand how the predator moves, how the predator fights, and you understand how to use this to your advantage.
I love everything you just said. And we talk about that a lot in the decade or so we've had this show, and that is like, um, you got to understand something. When you're attacked on the street, it's because the predator as being they have judged you. They have judged you weak enough for predation. Okay. So you have to win two fights. You got to win that mental fight of, I need to let you know what you bumped against is not what you think, and number two, then I need to win the physical fight. Because I need to change your mindset, because your mindset, I was weak, and I'm going to fix to show you that you made a huge mistake. And I agree with you. And that does not mean compassion. That means, and so my point of saying that is, Rich Brown is never going to fight again. I spent 4 years as a bouncer, cop, corrections officer, Marine for 20 something years. I am not going to go lightly on anyone. You want to buy a ticket, you get to see all the rides in the show, right? Until it's over. Because I love that. I'm gonna have to steal that, Ken. The long hospital stay or a quick funeral. That's so. But I mean, people hear that, and I hope they're not eye rolling, because listen to what he's saying, man. These people are absolute predators, and they need, in order to. It's a quick moment on predation, real quick. The way I look at it, and Ken, you tell me, because I think the literature would indicate that there's resource predators and process predators. A resource predator is somebody that needs to carjack you to get your car, steal your nice watch, get your Louis Vuitton bag. They need to take something off of you. That's a resource, and they see that you're just carrying. Like, if you don't know how to maintain custody of your firearm, all you are is a holster for me. I'm going to take that gun, right? So that's a resource predation. Process predator is maybe like the booty bandit, right? He enjoys the process of manipulating you and putting you into a position where he can prey upon you, or a rapist or something like that. Is that kind of where we're going with predation, Ken? Or is there something else I'm missing?
Nah, that's it. That's it right there.
Yeah. And my brother is on this morning. Jeff and I were on the special operations team in the prison we worked at. And Jeff will tell you, all we did for 2 weeks, night and day, was learn to fight in prison cells. Multiple attackers. You're fighting in visitation. You're fighting in the Sally Port. You're fighting in the yard. And one of the things that surprised me about your system is, when are you training? Because I'm going to tell you right now, as a martial artist who then became working in a prison system, if I see 2 inmates training in Kali or something like that, I'm going to bust that up. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, hey, bro, no. Here's a basketball. Go play cards. Go watch Sally Jesse Raphael, but you ain't gonna be doing this. Are you practicing in your cell when nobody's looking, Ken? How does that go down?
So there are two things with that. So the first is, in New York State, at one point we had boxing teams, right? And so you could use that as a cover for
Hey, what? What?
So you can use that as a cover for your practice, right? You might be at the heavy bag and it's like, all right, yo, when you do this 1-2, I want you to do your 1-2 and then throw this block up and come out with another 1-2 or whatever the case, right? And then when they stopped the boxing teams, they kept a lot of the boxing equipment. So you could go to the rec shack, give in your ID, take the heavy bag. And as long as it didn't openly look like you were practicing martial arts, nobody said anything, right? And I could stand at the heavy bag and coach you. So I could stand there and talk to him, be like, yo, I want you to do this. I want you to do that. Boom. And then when you went in the cell, like most of the guys I know that was like, into the nonsense, we would draw on the wall of our cell, like the outline, like a human silhouette, right? To practice where to strike and stuff like that. So you would be going through your blocks and, see where you want to strike on the body, because you want to hit specific parts. You don't want to just be throwing haphazard punches. Every punch should have an effect, right?
Well, like you said, Ken, this is the kill box, right?
Right.
So again, I think it's just like shooting, right? I mean, as as a competitive shooter and a guy that teaches people how to shoot, man, it's like it ain't doing nothing if you ain't hitting meat in the K5 area. So same thing, I imagine.
But even with so let's say it's a situation where you get caught short and you don't have a weapon, right?
Yep.
I teach something I call points of overbalance, right? There are different points on the body where I don't care how big you are, right, and how small the other person is. If you apply pressure to those points, it shifts the body's balance, right? It shifts your balance point. So in a fight, right, like I might throw a cross to the shoulder, right? Like say I'll throw a cross to your right shoulder and drop and throw another. Like when I step, now my left becomes a cross, and I shoot that cross to your left hip, right? So now your body's doing this. See, I put you out of balance. Once you're out of balance, so I have what I call the 6 parts of an engagement, and the third part of that is destabilize, balance, destroy structure, right? See, the first 3 parts of the 6 parts of an engagement is about compromising your opponent's defensive and offensive integrity, right? You want to connect and cross the bridge, neutralize his ability to attack, destabilize, balance, and destroy structure, right? So if there's no balance and structure, there's no solid platform to launch an attack or defense, right? So first, I want to rob you of the ability to protect yourself effectively or to attack me effectively, right? So once I take that from you, now it's everything after that is a Christmas dinner, right? I can do pretty much whatever I want. So I need to be accurate with my strikes. I think it was Wide Earp that said speed is something to the effect that speed is good, but accuracy is final, or accuracy is deadly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe in that, right? Yep. So I need to hit you where I intend to hit you in order to get the desired effect, because a violent engagement doesn't last very long, right? It's not like the movies where you stand there for 15, 20 minutes exchanging blows with somebody, right? It should be over as quickly as you can make it over, right? To your benefit. Mm-hmm. So I want to get into a position where I can, in the fight, right? Mm-hmm. For me to do that effectively, I had to put you in a position where you can't hurt me. Mm-hmm. So I need to rob you of your balance and rob you of your structure. Without those, you've got no fight, right? Once I take those from you, I can't let you regain them, right? So everything I do in the process of getting to step number 3 is just about putting me in a position, because step 4 is now I attack. So whatever I did prior to that wasn't really an attack. Even if I punch you, it's not an attack. It's about me putting myself in a position to attack. When I attack, I'm attacking to end the fight, right? As quickly as possible, as brutally as possible, as efficiently as possible.
Ken, can you go over those 6 steps one more time, please?
So the 6 parts of an engagement are: number 1 is connecting across the bridge. 2.
Can you unpack that, Ken? Connecting across the bridge.
So connecting across the bridge, right? So there's several ways that this can be done, right? If we're squared up like this, mm-hmm. I step forward and I call this patty cake, right? So I use my patty cake and I put my palm on your lead, on the back of your lead hand, right? To basically stymie any attack you would do from there. At the same time, so that's me connecting the bridge. I made a connection.
Let me explain. For those that are listening to the podcast later, Ken is demonstrating some sort of like a heel palm strike. Okay.
So that's to stymie your attack. I made a connection. We got a bridge there, right? Boom. Now I want to cross the bridge. So I may come over the back of that with a punch, right? So now I've connected the bridge, I cross the bridge. That's all one step, right? Boom. Now I want to neutralize your ability to attack, right? So once I can, hold on, before we get into that. So another way to connect the bridge, right? I did a video recently where I spoke about the 52 practitioner has to be like a door breacher, right? Mm. You have to first set, you stack up outside the door. When you see guys breaching doors in the military, you stack up outside the door first. Boom, the breacher gets the okay, he's in. So once we square up, that's me stacked up outside the door. The door is your defense, right? So when I take that step forward, if I come in behind cover, because it's just like a firefight, I don't want to come in with my head up and you shoot my head off. So I come in behind cover, right? I come in behind cover and I use my block to press your hands into your chest like this, right? So boom, that's me putting the charge on the door, right? When I open that up and I use this hand to pull your guard out the way, right? I just breached that door and now I'm coming through, bam, right? So this was my connection. This is me crossing the bridge and now I'm attacking. right? At the same time I'm doing this attack, right? I'm pulling to pull you off balance like this. That puts your body between me and your other hand, right? So you can't hit me with the hand. So I just neutralize your ability to attack me, right? I've also destabilized your balance and destroyed your structure, because if you're standing like this and now you're like this, your balance is going and your structure is going, right? So those are the first 3 steps, right? So connecting across the bridge, neutralize offense, destabilize balance, destroy structure. Then number 4, now I attack. Once I've got those 3 steps done, now I'm actually attacking, right? So we go back to the scenario I just said. I come in, I suppress, boom, breach, hit, and now I'm actually attacking. So I might come in from that and use this block is called Cool White Guy, right? So I hit, boom, and then I come in with the Cool White Guy block, but I'm using it as an elbow strike now. So I hit him in the face with this, open this up, right, with a hammer fist, and from that hammer fist turn into a head grab and bring his head into this elbow strike, right? See, now I'm attacking. Now I'm working, right? So after the first attack, right, that which is number 4, I stick and stay to determine follow-up. So if I'm here, boom, I do this and I do this attack. Now I want to see what's my next move, right? So boom, I open, I stick and stay to determine follow-up, and he's going to tell me where to hit him next, right? If his body's going this way, I know to punch down like this. If his body goes the other way, I know to hit over here. How his body moves will tell me what to do, right? Boom, that's number 5, right? Stick and stay to determine follow-up. 6, finish if possible. If not possible, repeat 4 and 5 until 6 is possible, right? So now I'm just about, remember I said earlier, I don't want to let him regain his balance and his structure. So once I get past 4, I'm just repeating 4 and 5 until I can do 6, right? When I'm in a position to do 6, the fight is over.
And 6 was what again, Ken?
Finish if possible. If not possible, repeat 4 and 5 until 6 is possible.
Okay. My favorite move was the Cool White Guy. I got to be honest with you. I dig that. Hey, I love this, man. You know, one of the things I meant to say earlier, but I had a senior moment, Ken, and it flew out of my head. And that was, you know, I'm not at 54 years old going to fight anybody. You know what I'm saying? However, I have no problem countering a violent assault, because so to me, it's like, you know, I'm not squaring up and fighting anybody, but I will counter a violent assault on my person. And in prison, is it that way too? I mean, is it sometimes like we're going to fight, this is the rules and we're going into it, or is it just countering an assault, or both?
It's both, right? So like I said, a lot of times, this is the 3 types of violence in prison. The one is sexual violence, right? Boom, that's predatory. We know what that's hitting for, right? The next is the assault, right? Something happened, you offended somebody, whatever the situation, you're walking down the tier, walking through the yard, and somebody just attacks you out the blue, right? And if you get caught slipping, then you're in a bad situation. And then the third type is the, you know, person on person. I'm from Brooklyn. You're a Latin king. You and I have a disagreement. But everybody from Brooklyn and all the Latin kings don't need to get into a fight about this. You and I are going to go in the bathhouse. You got your knife. I got my knife. Only one of us is coming out of it, right? Boom. So those are, you know, it can be either of those things, right? Now, personally, right? And then there's the spontaneous stuff too, right? And you and I might, you know, it happens. I might step on your foot, you step on my foot, you got a bad letter in the mail or whatever the case, boom, and that's a whole nother thing, right? So in a situation where if it's agreed upon, right, I always tell people, if you can't be first, be next, right? I don't want to wait for you to attack me if I know that there's a situation, right? Even out here in civilian life, I have the rule of 3, right? Boom. First, once I see that there's an issue, right, I put my hands up and I'm trying to de-escalate, right? But as I'm de-escalating, I'm evaluating you. I'm looking at your belt line, your pockets, your hands to see if you've got any weapons that are noticeable, right? Boom. I also want to scan the environment to see, you know, there are environmental objects that could become a factor, right? So I want to scan the environment to see if there's maybe a chair behind me that I could trip over, if there's a chair behind you that I could push you into, if there's maybe a bottle too close to your hand, if there's a bottle in my hand, all of these things, right? When I give you the second opportunity to walk away, right, I'm still in de-escalation mode. Now I'm scanning the people in the environment, right? I want to see who's trying too hard not to pay attention because they're probably with you and trying to get behind me or something like that, or who's paying too much attention to what's going on, right? Boom. And then last, that's go, right? So I've given you 2 opportunities to walk away, right? So now it's time for me to be first, right? And one of the things I find is the best way to be first is to ask the person what they want to do, right? If they continue to be belligerent and you see they're not trying to let you walk away, yeah, okay, cool. What do you want to do, right? 99.9% of the time, they're going to open their mouth to tell you what it is they want to do, right? And when they open their mouth, that's the easiest way to break their jaw, right? And if you hit them with what we call a man slap, you slapping them, but you're hitting them actually with the heel of your hand, yeah, you probably just dislocated their jaw, right? And that should probably take the fight out of them. So see, I'm not trying to fight either. I'm trying to end the fight as quickly as possible. But even with that, I understand that might not stop him. So if I hit here and I go into one of my blocks, but now I'm using the block as a cover and a strike, right? Mm-hmm. To close the distance, because I hit here, boom, this could be considered like a long range attack. Boom, now I want to close distance to get in range, bang, open up and end the fight, and that should be it, right? That gives me time to deal with him and then to scan and make sure that no friends, family, and sympathizers, because that's the thing, right? You always have to take that into consideration. And a lot of the times, and this is part of what I was saying with the predatory mindset earlier. So when people do stuff, like out here is different. And what I mean by that is all predation may not be for resources or for what was the other word?
Process.
Mm-hmm. Process, right? Boom. It could be for recreation, right? Mm-hmm. You get guys, they get drunk and they see a guy and they're like, yo, we should kick his ass, right? And it's just, they have no reason other than the fact that he may have come into the club with a pretty girl and one of them liked it and they don't like the fact, boom. And his guys, they're with him, they're gonna help him, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that when you get into that interview stage, right, of the engagement, a lot of times that interview stage is also the setup, right? Mm-hmm. While this one guy is interviewing you, his friends are getting in position so that they can vamp on you, right? His job is to hold your attention so one of these other dudes can blindside you, right? That takes time, right? What also takes time is, even though they may have said off to the side, yo, we should go do this to this guy, a lot of times when people get in the situation, there's a buildup. They have to build themselves up to actually carry out the act, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you see it a lot of times in professional fights. At the weigh-in, there's that whole standoff and the monkey dance, right? Boom. Mm-hmm. So it happens in the street too, right? The guy, he's there, he's talking shit or whatever the case, and he's big in his chest. So he's trying to build up his confidence to do the thing. At the same time, he's giving his people's time to get into position, right? Mm-hmm. So when you understand that, you want to cut that time because everything is a matter of perspective, right? And they're basing their strategy on where they are in relation to you. So if you switch up that with your position in relation to them like this, before they get a chance to set, it causes their mind to have to reset. You just disrupted the OODA loop, right?
Yep.
They already saw in their mind what was going to happen. Yeah, he's talking to him right here. I'm going to blindside him like this, and then the guy over there is going to do this, and then you change that. But because they saw this in their mind, they already think it's happening, right? So when it's not happening, the brain takes a moment to catch up, right? So when you attack, you go right on the attack. That's why I only give 3. And we're not going to stand there for 5 minutes as I'm going through this de-escalation process, right? When I go immediately on the attack and I drop this guy, right? Boom. And I move on to the next guy. They're trying to figure out what happened because in their mind, they saw me. I was supposed to be the victim here. Yep. I wasn't supposed to be the one doing the attacking. I was supposed to get attacked, right? Boom. So when I go on the attack, psychologically, it starts to mess with them. And then again, like I said, it disrupts that whole thought process, and they have to catch up. And while their brain is trying to catch up to what's going on, I want to make use of that time and try to eliminate each threat as they come.
Yeah. And so much of this is like in the Marine Corps, we have a doctrinal publication, right? MCDP1, Marine Corps doctrinal publication, number one, and it's warfighting, right? Very, very skinny document, Ken. But one of the things it says very early is exactly what you've just laid out for us. And that is, I want to put my enemy on what we call the horns of a dilemma from which he cannot escape, right? If he moves to the left, there's something for him there. He moves to the right, there's something for him there. Comes head on, there's something from there. And because I need to change his mind.
Yeah,
And I think what you're saying, it not only squares with the street, it squares with war fighting throughout time because the human element does not change. The only thing that's and Dr. Fuller, who's on this morning, he says, it is very demonstrative of what is often said here. Violent criminals are predators, and they do not think like you do. Uh, Jeff says, what was a telltale sign of an officer who was an easy target? Did you have anything that could kind of like, this guy's weak, and here's why?
a lot of so the scary ones, right? You can usually tell them they talk overly much. Let's take it from the different perspective. The officers that I encountered who were usually the real tough ones didn't talk a lot, and they usually were real chill, right? Boom, because they were confident in their ability to do what was needed if the situation arose. The ones who usually walk around with their chest puffed up all the time and always, those were the ones. So it's like, all right, cool. We catch him by himself. That's a whole mark right there, right? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't always the little cops, right? Because I knew some short cops that were badass, right? Sometimes it would be the big dudes. I don't know what affected them that way, but you could tell them, right? The way they move, the way they reacted to you being in close proximity. So there's always a test. I just spoke about the interview phase earlier, right? Boom. You try a person, right? You get close to him and see how they react, right? If he's kind of say, yo, you stand a little too close, back up. But if he does like, yo, what are you doing? Oh, we got one, right? This guy right here, yeah.
We got one.
Right?
I love it, man.
He's scared, right? So it's that, and then the conversation, right? You listen to what people talk about. If they always talk about like the cops that are always trying to make themselves seem tough usually aren't tough, right? It's the ones that, like I said, the ones that generally chill. It's a couple officers I met throughout the course of that visit. I was like, yo, if we see each other in the street, I'm gonna buy you a beer, man, because they were men. And that's pretty much it. The guys that carried themselves like men were usually the ones you had to worry about because they could handle themselves like men. And the other ones was the ones that when you caught them by themselves, they were girls, man.
I tell you what, man, it is all about respect in that community, and I grew up a white guy in Memphis, Tennessee. Wasn't always easy. But what is easy is I'm going to show respect, but I'm going to demand it from everybody else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm going to, and I think that for me, it's like if I see someone who has respect for themselves, the way they care, to your point, Ken, the way they carry themselves, the way they conduct themselves, the way they're dressed, it's what I call organized behavior, right? Their behavior is organized. Their speech is purposeful. And it sounds like when they say something, it sounds like those words have teeth to them. Like it doesn't have to be a lot of shit talking. And I love something else you said. There's a couple of things you said. One, it's like I'm always testing you, whether not all. I mean, I'll give you an example. Recently, I had a guy. We were walking into a brewery, and he came by and he's revving his engine at me and my wife. I'm like, "What the fuck is this about?" He's like slowed down alongside of us, tinted windows, and just really, he's in a Maserati too. So he's just revving his engine, and I'm like, what is this? And then when he came back in later, I saw him shooting pool. And I just walked between him and his pool table as he's shooting ball. I did it twice. That was a test. You gonna let me punk you like that? You gonna let me get in close proximity and you ain't gonna say nothing? You ain't even gonna make eye contact with me. So I'm like, I'm sensing fear. And so then I did what I did. But my point is listen to what Ken's saying, man. You may be getting tested and you don't even know it. Couple different things here. I want to get to some of the comments that are flowing in. Tom says, great show. Ken is the best. Lynn says, yes. Alan says, at 68 years old, I am like you, Rich. I'm not intentionally starting a fight. de-escalation if possible, but I will unleash whatever tools that I can legally and with violence if need be. Todd says, Shadow. Will is on, says, running late, but good morning, Rich and Ken from Missouri, coin number 2269. Kim says, I always learn so much from you. When are you writing a book? I'm completely serious. Sounds like you need to, Ken. Have you thought about that? Have you thought about writing a book?
Well, I'm actually working on a book about my system now. It's going to be called, right now, the title is tentatively The De-escalation Combative Perspective. And,
say that one more time, Ken. The what?
The De-escalation Combative Perspective.
Okay. I want to talk about distance management. We talk about there's times to take distance away. Oh, well, maybe back up. One of the things that you keep talking about, and you keep talking about like this concept of off balancing. I want to take his balance away and get him moving this way. And once I've got him off balance or his balance is broken, then I can launch this attack. It's the same thing as the concept of kazushi and judo, right? I can't just go in for a throw without off balancing first. So please listen to what Ken's saying that. I think a lot of people try to do something when their opponent's not off balance. And off balancing can be, I can off balance you verbally. I can off balance you by getting into close proximity, by changing my relationship between you and maybe an object, like you said, that I can push you into. So is there anything else we're missing about the importance of off balancing, Ken?
No, man, like that. Only thing, and I pretty much covered it, is that, like, that's the bread and butter, right? You want to put him on a footing where he can't mount an effective offensive defense, right? If I'm off balance and I try to throw a punch, I'm probably going to throw myself further off balance, right? If I'm off balance and you throw a punch and I try to protect, what's going to happen is you're going to knock me further off balance, right? If there's no good structure, no solid structure, no good balance, you got nothing. So if you can rob again, I don't care how small you are, right? There are points on the body you hit, and I'm not talking about pressure points. We're not talking about, one finger, you hit him with a finger and he falls over dead or anything like that. I'm talking about practical common sense stuff, right? You punch somebody on the point of the hip goes back. You pull the hip in the other direction, it's going to go in that direction, right? You hit the inside or outside of the knee, is going to buckle one way or the other, right? You punch the shoulder, the upper body does this. These things have to happen because that's just the way that the body is designed, right? So once you understand that and you understand how to get to those targets and, what it is you want to do from that point, the fight is so much easier. Like, fighting is easy. I tell people that all the time, fighting is easy, right? It's understanding, getting to the point where you understand that fighting is easy, that's hard.
I love it, man. It's just like, the person, think about this for a second, and not you, Ken, but I'm the folks that are listening. You're out there driving your truck down the interstate. You're listening to me and Ken this morning. Think about this. As bipedalism is pretty great. We got 2 feet, but we're inherently unstable creatures, right? Like I owned horses, right? Very stable platform for a 4-legged animal. However, human, you're two legs. If I do a collar tie on you and pull you a little bit, and you're either going to fall on your face or you're going to put a foot out to balance yourself, right? So if I know this and I know there's a point in space where that foot is going, I think it speaks to what you're saying. Fighting is easy. If I know these things, I know where the foot's going to go and I know what to do next because it's an off balancing move. So I think, I don't know, man, I see a lot of 100% of men think they can fight. 99% of them are wrong. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
It cracks me up, man. It absolutely cracks me up. How do you deal with that, Ken?
So, first, to that point that you just made, right, as far as us being bipedal, right? Think about this, and I ask this to people all the time. When you walk, you're doing a very specific thing, right? And most people don't even realize it. You're falling and catching yourself, yes. Right? Boom, you're falling and catching yourself. That's what walking is. When you run, you're just doing it at a more rapid pace, right? So when you understand that walking is just falling and catching yourself, it's like, all right, cool. So like you said, if you put a tie or a collar tie on somebody and pull, and they're either going to take that step forward, fall on their face, or they're going to try to pull away, right? Either way, they have to do something because they're going to fall or they have to catch themselves. Even if they pull back, they take a step back. So if you take that step from them, right, they're going to fall, right? You just compromise their balance. If you cause them to, in the process of taking that step, if you pull and you see that they're going to take the step forward and you hook the leg a little bit with your foot just to extend their leg a little bit beyond the point of balance, right? Now they're overbalanced, which is a bad thing, right? So being underbalanced is a bad thing. Being overbalanced is a bad thing. And you want to put them in one of those positions or entirely off balance, right? So, so that's I just wanted to add that to what you were saying, right?
I love it, man. I love it. Jay says this was a great show, gents. You bring so many great perspectives to the table. You should really look at future collaborations. So much amazing potential. Yeah, I am absolutely enjoying this. Jay is the one that put me in touch with Ken. So thank you so much, Jay, for this recommendation. I'm absolutely. We have to. I know I'm not done with you yet, Ken, but I got to get you on here for round 2 because I know we're going to leave meat on the table today, sir. Let's say Mr. Nelson says Ken is giving such raw and insightful education. The descriptive visuals of 52 VTK. Greetings from Memphis. Well, you're just down the road from me, Mr. Nelson. Good morning. Kim says, always a pleasure, Shadow. I have to go. Thank you. Bruce says, thank you, guys. Listen, I want to talk about distance management, Ken. And the way I look at it is there's times I want to create distance, there's times I want to close distance, but being able to manage that distance in a fight or assault, whatever, is so critically important. Can you give us some of your thoughts on distance management?
So yeah, distance management is huge, right? Especially when you start factoring in weapons into the equation. And so in myself, I like to fight in close, right? That's my preferred range. I'm a relatively strong dude, right? I know that if I get in close, I can use my elbows and stuff like that to end the fight pretty quickly, right? However, if it's a situation and the guy may have got, I wasn't first, he was first, right? And he has
you're behind the curve. Yep.
Yeah, I'm behind the curve, right? So he has a knife, right? So now we use the blocks like the fan and stuff like that. I can use the fan to deflect that weapon while either I close the distance to get control of the arm with the weapon or I put something between us, right? The reality is real violence isn't like the movies. I said that earlier. And if the guy has a knife and he looks like he knows what to do with it, I might want to put something between the two of us to give me time to assess, right? To see if I can find a weapon that's either longer than his or just something to kind of level the playing field a little bit, right? So, but you can't just do that. It's not like you pull a weapon on me and I'm like, oh, time out. Let me walk behind this desk, right? I have to be able to get to that point. So there are blocks inside the system that are geared toward dealing with that type to create distance between you and the person. So every block, right, has the potential to close distance or create distance, right? Even if I use like the bull, right, which is basically this block here. Yeah. If you threw a wild cowboy punch at me, right, like the haymaker, and I come in, boom, I slam my elbow into your chest, it creates distance because you're going backward, right? So if I hit, I make that contact and maintain my position. I don't follow after you. I just create a distance, right? So I may need to do that. Maybe you threw that punch and I need to create an exit point, right? So I hit you, boom, and I turn around and go this way. While you're stumbling back that way, trying to regain balance and see when you come back to balance again, right? That gives me time to get away, right? Or to put something between the two of us. If, it's a straight shot and I fan it this way, I can step up as I'm fanning that way because you're not just moving the hand, right? Let me say this. I always tell the people I train that your 52 is not a defensive system, it's counteroffensive, right? You're either attacking the attack or you're attacking the attacker directly, right? So when I do this fanning motion, I'm like trying to make contact with the inside, with this bone, right? And I want to hit his hand as hard as possible to see if I can make his body go like this, right? Because if I can make him turn that way, I can take his back, right? Or I can get out of dodge, right? So this again, and this goes back with the distance management, right? I have the option. I want to create options for myself to either close distance or create more distance, right? But distance management is huge, particularly again when weapons are involved, and like if the person has a firearm, right? I don't want to, unless there's a wall or something I can put between us. I want to close the distance so that I can get control of that arm. There's a guy in Maryland, right, that I've trained with named BK, who has the best firearms defense I've come across, right? And it's very simple. It's based on two principles. Principle number one, get out the line of fire. Principle number two, stay the fuck out the line of fire, right? So boom, you do that, right? Boom. If I can keep the gun pointed somewhere other than at me, I'm good, right? I can't do that if there's nothing between us and I just push your hand away and start running. You just shoot me in my back, right? So, but with the knife, distance is your friend, right? I tell people, you engage someone who has a knife, you either want to get in close to gain control, or you want to get far away so that they can't stab you, right, or cut you. But yeah, distance management is huge. It's all about you knowing. You have to know what it is you want to do before you do it, and you have to notice. You have to be realistic in your intent, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you take a 30-day self-protection class, right, and the guy pulls a knife on you, you probably be better to just run, right? Because you may not have the skill set to deal with that just yet, right? Boom. So you have to be realistic in your expectations of yourself and your ability.
Yeah, man. I taught edge weapons in the Marine Corps way back in the day, and then I've trained with Mike Janich a lot. Have you trained with Janich?
Now, I know who he is. I've seen some of his videos on YouTube. I like his stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's just looking at some of your movements here as we're chatting. It looks very similar. Of course, he's got a Kali and Filipino martial arts background. But one of the things you said when you were talking about edge weapons, I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I got the impression that in a penitentiary, you're looking more at killing with an edge weapon, but more on the street, your rules of engagement are such that to use Mike Janich's term, if you can defang the snake without killing them, that might be a better way to go. Am I misrepresenting what you said, Ken?
No, I agree with that 110%. Right.
Okay.
Well,
one of the things I wanted to ask you is, as a former cop, man, I know a lot of folks that listen to our show are police officers, Ken. Is there a role for the law enforcement professional with 52 blocks?
I think so, right? I think it would be huge for law enforcement to, start training in 52 blocks. One, because again, it was made by the types of people that you would be going up against, right? So it gives you a better understanding of how they move and what they're capable of, right? Two, so again, I don't want to go to the ground, right? If I'm a cop, I don't want to go to the ground. I'm assuming that. So I have what I call 4 cardinal assumptions in my system, right?
Okay.
The first is that there's always a weapon involved, right?
Yep.
The second is that friends, family, and sympathizers, the other person always has help, right? The third is that they're always bigger, stronger, faster, they're more skilled than you are. And last is that you're always fighting by yourself, right? So, nobody's coming to help you. So now, if I'm a cop, right, and I happen to see something going on, I get a call out to a house or whatever the case, and I get, the guy becomes belligerent, and we go to the ground, right? I don't know who else is in that house with him that may come out to help, right? I don't want to put myself in a situation where, again, like I said earlier, my back is to whoever, right? I don't have eyes in the back of my head. I don't know who may be coming up behind me, right? Even if it's a domestic violence situation, the woman may have called the cops because she was mad at the time, and then when you come there to arrest the guy, she's forgiven him already, and now she stabs you because you're beating up on a boyfriend or a husband or whatever the case, right? So if you can stay on your feet and not have to go to the ground, it puts you in a better position because you can stay mobile and you can constantly be checking your 6, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now with 52, it allows you to do that. Remember, it was made for tight spaces, and the whole thing with like the certain blocks for distance management. Mm-hmm. If a guy became belligerent, I can blow him back, right? Boom, knock him off balance or whatever the case, still subdue him, right? Get control of him and still be able to maintain my visual on everything else around me, what's going on, right? There are moves that you can do, and like I have my girlfriend do them all the time. She does them to me, and she's not as big as I am, right? Where she subdues me and puts me, gets me in the chicken wing, right, or the half Nelson. And if she was a cop, she could put the cuffs on me, and I really wouldn't be able to do anything to stop her, right? So, and she's still mobile, right? She can still move around. She can still see what's going on, right? And that's huge. That's huge. Like, I'm just a dude walking down the street, and I don't want to be in a situation where I can't see what's going on behind me if I'm dealing with a violent situation in front of me, right? So I would imagine for a cop, that would be that times 100. Right?
Yeah, man. Well, let's go back to your 4 cardinal assumptions. I think everybody listening to your voice today needs to listen to those 4 cardinal assumptions because they are 100% true. I don't give a shit what environment you're in. I don't give a crap if you're a cop, corrections officer, if you're just a dude on the street. The 4 cardinal assumptions will save your life. Another thing you said very early on, something we say on this show a lot, and that is, mobility is your key to survivability. You got to be up and mobile. Now, the problem with that is, as a law enforcement, I have to put the handcuffs on. If I'm there to arrest, like when I was a cop at Tennessee, changed the law and said it just a subtle change. They changed one word, Ken, and that was from you may arrest to you will arrest. They just changed one word. So on a domestic violence, if I go in and I see the woman's got signs of assault on her, the man's got signs of assault on her, I have to take somebody to jail. It's not. The law doesn't give me any wiggle room on whether I want to or not. I have to go. And one of the things cops are always taught is get the domestic violence out of the kitchen because that's where the sharp, pointy stuff is, right? And then separate those two because if you don't, you're right. Mama's going to jump on you if you try to arrest daddy. But at the same time, to your point, I would much rather arrest somebody on their feet where I can move around. I got good line of sight. I can disengage if I have to and back out of the house. I had a buddy of mine jumped out of a window one time because the wife was coming at him with a knife. She had wrestled away from the cop that was supposed to be watching her, got to the kitchen, got a knife, and he just dove out the window. So all that stuff happens, man. But to your point, staying up and on your feet and being maintaining your mobility, increasing your survivability is incredibly important. The problem comes when you go to put the handcuffs on and then they become combative. And in that instance, going to the ground and limiting their ability to run away and their maneuver space is something that you have to do. And in that case, I think that's where cops can run into some serious trouble if they don't have backup, right?
So to that, right? We go back to the 6 parts of an engagement, right? And we take it and we look at it through a different lens. If a guy becomes combative, right? All right. So now I need to rob him of his ability to be able to hurt me, right? So if I punch him, I hit him on the inside of the knee here, boom, give him a nice cross here. While he's dazed, that's my time to put the cuffs on, right? I want to take the fight out of him. If I could take the fight out of him for a moment, right? And again, I've never been in law enforcement, so this for me right now is all supposition, right?
Sure.
But if I can take the fight out of him for a few moments, right? That gives me time to put the cuffs on. I might not have time to put the safety lock on or whatever the case, but it gives me enough time to put the cuffs on. And while he's cuffed, if his hands are behind him, he becomes less of a threat, right? Boom. Mm-hmm. Once I got that done, think about it like this, and this is going to sound crazy, right? But if you look at it from an abduction situation, right? Boom. Mm-hmm. We know that the initial where the initial act takes place, it's usually a sloppy job, right? Boom. It's when you get to the secondary location that everything becomes tidy, right? That's when you're in the greatest risk, right? Yep. That's the greatest threat, right? Because boom, they took you from here. It was a rush job because they had to get you before anybody saw what was going on. And get you to the next spot. It's a more secure location. They can make sure that you're bound properly, and then they take you wherever they take you. So if I'm the cop, I'm looking at it like that. I might not be able to get the cuffs on neatly, right? Boom. But I got him on. I got him cuffed. He's restrained. He's less of a threat right now. I can scan whatever. And then once I get him in the car, right, or to the or wherever the secondary location is, I can check, make sure, all right, cool. Yeah, they're not too tight. Let me put the safety lock on here for you. Boom, boom, boom. I got you good, right? But I don't want to spend too much time trying to, make the cuff or cuff them in a pretty way.
Yeah.
And there are other potential threats in the area.
Yeah. Eric Harris says, thank you for all you do, Shadow. Dean Franco, speaking of Filipino martial arts, Dean is on. Good morning, Dean.
Hey,
John,
Dan.
John Melly says, I missed the start of this. I'll have to rewatch. Yeah, please do. There's a lot of stuff in here, John, for everyone. The to your point, yeah, when the handcuffs come out, that's normally when the fight goes. But I'm gonna say fight is a loose term. More often than not, it's some sort of physical noncompliance. They're not really fighting you, but they're not really helping you get handcuffed either. So they're brushing you off, and stuff like that. And all police officers in the United States, anyway, have a use of force continuum, and using some sort of physical strike to someone who's being just physically non-compliant may not be lawful. So it would be interesting, man, if you could get with someone and take 52 blocks and make it where it's LEO friendly and conforms to the use of force continuum. I would be really interested in that at some point in the future, Ken.
That's something to look into.
Yeah, I want to talk real quick. Like I said, as a former corrections officer, man, I understand that prisons are full of hard and sharp surfaces, stainless steel and concrete for the most part. How does 52 blocks operate in this environment?
All right, so that's the environment where 52 is king, right? Again, in my system, I talk about objects for opportunity. Some of these objects are environmental objects, right? And so, like a wall, So first, let's back up a little bit. A lot of times when you ask people what's a weapon, they'll tell you something, the common stuff: knife, stick, bat, gun, boom, or they'll tell you something that you can pick up and hold in your hand, right? They overlook the fact that your environment is a weapon as well, right? So if I can bounce your head off of a shop corner, right? I just use that as a weapon, right? If I got a good friend of mine, Chris Carney, right? He says nothing hits harder than gravity, and the ground never misses, right?
Facts, folks.
If I can get you in a position where I bounce your head off the concrete, that's a beautiful thing. I just use the concrete as a weapon. So I want to use my environment, and there's an element of 52 called four corners, right? Which is basically comes from wall fighting, right? Where you're up against the wall and you're bouncing off the wall like you're doing it like it's the ropes of the boxing ring,
yep.
Right? But when I fan this way, I'm guiding your fist into the wall, right? So I let you break your hands on the wall, right? Boom. I move. You hit the wall on this side. You hit the wall on that side. I pivot. Boom. Bounce your head off the wall this way. Give you an elbow as you go out. Boom, boom. So I want to use my environment to my advantage, right? So to that, right? To kind of build on that. So in the system, I have what I call the 3 parts of awareness, right? Awareness is broken into 3/3. These are not 3 distinct separate things. These are 3 things that make up one whole, right? Okay. So the first is awareness of ourselves in relation to others. The next is awareness of ourselves in relation to the objects around us. And the last is awareness of the people and objects around us in relation to each other, right? See, I want to be aware because proximity breeds opportunity. The closer somebody is to me, the more of a threat they can potentially be, right? So I want to be aware of who's close to me and how close they are, how they're standing, because if they're standing with their left side to me, the logical attack, if they decide to attack, would come from the left. Closest them is the most dangerous, right? Objects around me. I want to see what in my environment I could use to my advantage if the situation goes south, right? But the same way I'm thinking like this, I have to assume the other person is thinking the same. So I have to be aware of the proximity between the objects around me and the people around me. How close are the objects to them? What can they use as a weapon against me? And what object could they push me over? Like I said earlier, as far as like, is there a stool behind me or something that I can be pushed over to lose my balance, right? The reason I've split awareness into those thirds like that is because I know that the environment can be used as a weapon, right? So I need to be aware. I want to make sure that I tell the people I train, I need you to be aware of your environment because this is how you use your environment to help you, and this is how it can hurt you, right? So the sharp objects, the hard objects, the bars in the cell, right? The bed in the cell, the sink, the toilet, all of that stuff, right? All of that becomes a weapon to your advantage if you understand how to get the person in a position to use that weapon effectively. And this comes back to taking their balance and their structure from them, right? So see, it's like a loop. You keep coming back to the 6 parts of an engagement. That's why I feel like any engagement can be broken into those 6 parts, right? Because those are relevant. And whatever system you practice, whatever style you do, those are, they're relevant, right?
No, I love it, Ken. And I want to go back to, like I said, I'm not a striker yet, trained in it, but it's not my jam because this is delicate, very delicate. And I'm going to need this thing to grab a hold of you at some point or grab a hold of my weapon. So the risk of damaging my hand is just too gray for me to be throwing it. Now, a heel palm strike, something like that, absolutely 100%. But balling my fist and punching somebody, man, I have broke my hand before, and I don't want to do it again. And I love the fact that the environmental awareness with which you look at fighting is not something I hear from a lot of people, because I think a lot of people are just academic with it, whereas it was part of your day-to-day life. It had to be, right? I mean, your survival depended on it. If you ever want to get out and see your family, this is the way it's going to have to be. And to Todd's point, he says, hit them with the planet. Yeah, man. Gravity works everywhere. I'm leaving for Scotland next week, right? I cannot take the gun that I normally carry. I cannot take the knife I normally carry. I can't take pepper spray. All that shit's illegal. But guess what? Gravity works in Scotland just as good as it does here. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Proximity to other objects, the relationships to people. One of the things you said, I hope people heard you said, was I'm looking for who's not paying attention to this and who's paying too much attention to this. You know what I mean? That awareness of every other person in and around this engagement is important, because you don't want to get hit from, and as a bouncer, I know this, man. We didn't go talk to people one-on-one. It's one bouncer's going to make contact and the other one's going to circle around behind. And if he snatches one dude, the guy is going to snatch another one, and we're going out the door. And that's where it's interesting, Ken, because as someone who's done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 7 or 8 years now, and then someone who is a bouncer, I don't want to take somebody on the floor in a nightclub. I don't want to take somebody to the floor when I worked in a prison, because I need to be taking them to the sliders to try to get out and take them to either take them to their cell or take them to 6C, which is where we had the segregation pod, all these kind of things, man. So I think staying mobile is one of the most important takeaways, and staying on my feet is one of the most important takeaways I'm going to take from our conversation today.
So I want a couple things you said, right? So first, as far as punching with the hand, I agree with you. My hands have been through some stuff, so it can take a little bit of punishment. But I teach a lot of the strikes that I use are hammer fist strikes, right? You strike with this, strike with the forearm, the inside of the forearm, the elbows, right? Because I know those can take a beating, and I don't risk breaking anything here. Because, like you said, you may have to use a weapon later on, right? Or you may have to open a door. Something as simple as that. I subdue this person. I need to get out this room or get out this building before the next person comes. If I can't open the door, I just screwed myself.
Yeah, if you can't talk on the damn cell phone, man.
Yeah, that's true, right? So hammer fist strikes, I'm a big proponent of hammer fist strikes, elbows, heel strikes. Boom.
Can I ask you a question with that, Ken?
Absolutely.
I'm sure you've seen people break their hands in prison or on the street, wherever. Have you ever seen anybody damage their hand using a hammer fist or a heel palm?
Never.
I haven't either. Never.
Right? That's why I'm such a firm believer in hammer fist strikes. I love hammer fist strikes. Right? Like a hammer fist strike is a blunt instrument that can be used with surgical precision. Right? Think about it. If the guy's got his guard up, right, and you throw a hammer fist strike, it's a gross motor movement, but you can use that to blast right through his defense, knock his hands to the side, and now this is all exposed, right? Boom. And it only takes that. So you can hammer fist here, heel strike here, come in with the elbow strike there, another hammer fist comes right behind that. Like it's a bad day for him, right?
Yeah. My buddy Mike is on this one. He says, "Good guess, and I'm with you, Rich. I'd rather attach and ragdoll them into the concrete. The environment hits a lot harder than I do." And Mike is a former MMA fighter. Um, Ken, I've kept you on here an hour and a half, and I've loved every second of it, brother. I have one final question for you, and then I want to get you to promise me you'll come on for round two, okay? But the final question for you, sir, is where's this nation headed, man? Because I tell you, I'm worried about 2024 and 2025, man. What do you think, Ken?
Man, so as far as that, like I try not to be a political person, but it's hard not to be political these days. It's like the nation is going down. The Constitution, it's almost like it doesn't exist anymore, right? All of the constitutional rights are slowly being taken away, and it's being done so secretly. Like they passing laws to take away your freedom of speech, take away your freedom, everything, the press, like everything is being taken away, right? They're trampling all over the right to bear arms. There's a lot going on, man, and you know, I don't want to seem like I have a tinfoil hat on, but I have my suspicions.
Yeah, I don't see it going anywhere good. And it's
Yeah,
funny
no.
it's funny you brought up the Constitution. A buddy of mine texted me the other day. It's like, here's what I'm reading now, Rich, and it's Will if he's on. Shout out, Will. And it was a picture of some book about the Constitution and all the Bill of Rights and stuff. I said, you know what, man? I almost bought my kids a copy of some little small desk-sized book of the Constitution just so they knew their rights. And I'm like, I don't know that it means what it used to mean.
Yeah,
I think I'm with you, man. I think they're slowly eroding on all these little pieces of uh, your freedoms. And going back to, I'm going to Scotland, brother. They have taken away your ability to do everything. One of our members is a cop in London. So I reached out to him. I said, "Hey man, can I carry this shit? It's called Faber marking dye. It looks like pepper spray, but all it does is just puts a red film on the guy. It doesn't hurt him. It doesn't do anything other than mark him for the police." And he's like, "You can't even carry that here. You can't carry anything." And it starts slowly. It starts, we just want to take away assault weapons. We just want to take away semi-automatic handguns. We just want to take away edge weapons. We just want, what's next? You'll take away rocks, Ken? What are they doing?
yeah, that's exactly right, man. They're taking away our ability, basically, to protect ourselves, right?
Yeah.
That's what it all comes down to. But to the point that you just made, as far as like being able to travel, right? So this is a weapon that we can take everywhere, right? The cell phone, right? You hold your cell phone like this, you hammer fist strike somebody with it. They believe me, they don't want to get hit with that.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
Yeah.
Now, another thing too, if you're interested in any of this or any of the viewers or your listeners, I work with Delta 2 Alpha a lot, and we come up with stuff that you can take with you everywhere, right?
Mm.
This is called a mark, and I tell people I've gone through TSA with this, with this item here, the Flipio, which is made by OcuStrike, right? She has a pin in it.
Oh yeah.
And I tell them, yo, I have big hands. I got a little bit of arthritis. I need this in order to hold the pin properly. But see, boom, has a retention ring on it. Boom. This is the Jackal, right? You can use it like this, but I prefer to use it for a hammer fist strike, right? It's nasty business. And the mark, you can hold like this. You can use this hook for some nasty things. Same thing holding it this way, right? And again, when people ask, I tell them I use it to hold my cell phone, like as a cell phone stand, because I like to watch movies on my phone or to hold my backpack up or my coat so I don't have to put it on the floor, right? But there's a lot of stuff that we collaborate and make a lot of stuff for that low-key EDC stuff, right? So if anybody...
I love it. And Ken is going to give me a QR code and some other stuff. So if you go to our AmericanWarriorShow.com page, once the show drops, I'm going to have a video link to the show as well as all the links where you can follow Ken and pick up some of the merch he's talking about.
All righty.
Yeah, I love that stuff, man. This is it's like this. This is my flashlight, right? But it does other things, and this is going to be legal in other countries because it's just a flashlight. But I mean, that's about it. And they may even have a problem with this little ring. I may have to take it off at the airport. I don't know. We'll see. Where can folks train with you, man?
Well, I offer online classes, right? I'm located in Binghamton, New York. So if you're ever in the Binghamton area, or if you're somewhere, not too far out, I can come out to you for privates, right? I offer private lessons here in Binghamton, and I also offer online classes, right? For individuals and for groups.
Is there a email or a website folks can reach out to you?
They can reach me at Torian Tactical 52. That's my email, at gmail.com. If they want to inquire about classes, or even if they want to have any questions about any merch or anything like that.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and drop your email, if you don't mind, Ken, into the comments today. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. There we go. All right, Ken, I want you to commit to round 2, brother, because I have loved today's conversation.
Yeah, me too, brother. I'm here. Let me know when.
All right, buddy. Guys and gals out there in Warrior Nation, Ken, thank you for coming on today, and I appreciate you sharing all your knowledge with us. And guys and gals, yes, sir, absolutely. Guys and gals of Warrior Nation, man, remember what Ken is saying, the fight is coming. Be ready.